Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Sorry about that. Just having some technical issues. If someone's here, they can start typing in the chat. I see we do have people joining again. As a recap, we're talking about the Milgram experiment. And we said that the Milgram experiment was really, really jarring because in the Milgram experiment, we saw that humanity is capable of doing anything as long as someone who is an authority figure can tell them to do it. And what I was saying about the Milgram experiment, and by the way, assalamu alaikum, everyone who's coming back. I apologize for the technical error, and hopefully it's smooth sailing going forward. So what I was saying about the Milgram experiment is that in the Milgram experiment, where the person is shocking another person and they're not stopping just because a man in a white coat is telling them to do so, the people, while they were shocking other people, they kept going. And like I said, 65% of people went all the way to the end, to the point where people would have been dead in real life way before that point. And even when the other listener passed out and stopped making any noise when you shocked them, they still kept going to the end. But one thing about this is every single time they would shock the person, they would look back at the man in the white coat. And then they would continue. And they would shock the person and they would look back at the man in the white coat. And one of the reasons why psychologists say that they were able to do such cruel acts is because they could blame somebody else for it, not themselves. They could say, well, I didn't have a choice. I didn't design the experiment. They designed the experiment. So you see what I'm talking about at the Day of Judgment. We're capable of doing horrible things and finding excuses to blame it on somebody else. So we can blame the man in the white coat, even though we are the ones pressing the button, torturing people. And this is very well found that, if you repeat the Milgram experiment, they can't do it anymore because of ethical reasons. People will continuously do this and they will punish other people as long as they can blame other people. And that's why armies, they make it so important for soldiers not to have any say, because a soldier needs to think that I can kill the other person because I have no choice. Whatever my superiors tell me, sami'na wa ata'na, I have no choice. All the responsibility is going to them, and therefore the responsibility is not on me. And that's why we need the Day of Judgment to kind of pin it on us that I am responsible for my actions, because I will always find a reason to blame somebody else. And that's also a reason why, nowadays we're developing technologies in which we can shoot a person from far away, or we can press a button from far away and not see the consequence of our actions and blame somebody else for it, not ourselves, because we are such great people. So two things we mentioned so far. The first thing we mentioned is that, people will not take responsibility. We talked about the bystander apathy, where as long as you can put the responsibility on somebody else, you would not even help a person. And number two, we talked about how people will even blindly obey orders to do horrible things as long as you can put the blame on authority figures on top of you. And number three, I want to talk about de-individuation, which means you guys must have seen this, right? You must have seen a video of a huge mob going crazy and doing horrible things. I forgot what the incident is, and I don't want to mention it because I don't want people Googling it. But it was very, very disturbing, where, a group of young men, not a group, like a huge mob of young men I think it was a St. Patrick's Day parade, they ended up literally sexually violating and doing all sorts of crazy things to all these women. So the question comes in, why is it that people are able to do horrible things when they are in this huge group? We see this online as well, where huge groups of people, they bully a person, they push a person until in many, many, many cases, people commit suicide? What happens when we're in a group? Why do people become worse? And one reason for this is the fact that we can put the blame on the group, and we don't have to take the blame on our shoulders as individuals. So going back to my original point, the day of judgment is important because each and every one of us will be tried on an individual basis. And on that day, a lot of the excuses that we tell ourselves will not count in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's why, as a Muslim, we need to live a life of responsibility and take responsibility of our actions, because all these excuses don't work in our philosophy, in our mindset, in which we have to answer to our Creator. And now we come to the fourth point and the last phenomenon that I wanted to mention. Actually, I wanted to talk about a very interesting study in the third point, in the individuation. And I posted this earlier today on Twitter as well. They did a study in which they had kids come in for Halloween. And what happened is they told the kids that you can only take one candy, and they left the kids alone in the room. And what they found is that when kids, so some of the kids, they asked them their name, and other kids, they didn't ask their name. And what they found is some of the kids came alone and some of them came in a group. So the kids who came in a group, so first of all, the kids who came alone and they said their name, only about 8% took more than one candy. Very good kids, mashallah. The kids who came alone, but they didn't tell their name, meaning they were anonymous, 20% of them stole, meaning more than one candy. Kids who came in a group, but they did tell their name, 20% of them stole. But kids who came in a group and they didn't tell their name, I think 65% of them stole. Meaning, when you are in a big group, you don't have all the responsibility. You can just put the responsibility on somebody else. Khalas, you can steal. Everybody's doing it. It's not just me. It's not my fault. What I'm saying is, if it's not for the day of judgment, human beings, we will find a reason to blame somebody else for all the wrongs that we're doing in the world. And the last thing I want to mention is the fundamental attribution error, which means that when it comes, let's say you're walking down the street and you see someone doing something bad, you won't make excuses for them. You will look at the external situation and you say, that guy is full of garbage, that guy is not a good person, etc., etc. But when it comes to ourselves, and this is very highly recorded, researched, all that, we make excuses, internal excuses for ourselves. So for example, if I'm stealing, I would make excuses. Well, you know what? The price that they're charging is it's crazy. Or for example, if you want to see reasons of people making excuses, you can see my tweet when I said that cheating on exams is a sin. So the thing here is the four things here. The first thing we mentioned is that bystander apathy, where you're in a big group and people will not act if they can put the responsibility on somebody else. There's so many people here, why should I act? Number two, you have obeying authority. As long as you can blame the authority, you don't have to take the responsibility, you would do horrible things. Number three, you have de-individuation, in which you're in a big group, so you can do horrible things because it's not just you, it's everybody else. The blame is on them, it's not on me. And number four is the fundamental attribution error, that when we do something wrong, we're able to make excuses. But when someone else does something wrong, we talk bad about them. All of these excuses go out the window when we talk about the day of judgment. And honestly, I think about the wrongs that I have done and the excuses that I have made for my wrongs. And may Allah forgive me. Deep down in my heart, I know those excuses are not acceptable in the court of Allah. May Allah forgive me. May Allah forgive you. May Allah allow us to seek forgiveness from the people we have wronged. I apologize for the technical error. I look like garbage. I know. I'm studying for exams. It was honestly a pleasure all the people who came. I can see the comments. May Allah reward you all. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.